Hey guys, I'm going to do a quick video today on how to disassemble the Benchmade 51 Morpho butterfly knife. And also, I'm just going to show you when I'm putting everything back together, I guess how to install Flytanium scales like the ones I have on here. So I'll fast forward while I'm unscrewing everything and we can get right to it. Alright, so now that you got all the screws out, you can actually take the scales off. And then now what you're left with is the liners on each side. You can go ahead and take these off. Sometimes they get a little sticky on the pivots, but just give it a little bit of force and they'll come off. Alright, so now what you're left with, just make sure that you take both washers off. Sometimes they stick on. If you put too much oil on it, they'll stick onto the liners and not get left on the blade right there. But now you can go ahead and lift the blade up if you want. Just be careful, you don't want to cut yourself. And just put the blade right there. And now what you're left with is the bottom scales and liners right here. Okay, now with the scale and the liner off, I'm going to talk about the safe handle first. So with everything off and the blade off and everything, you're left with a few things. You're left with a pivot pin, a body pin, a spacer, that spacer pin, which is that pin right there, and then a Zen pin. I'm not going to take everything off just for time's sake. So if you want to take the whole thing off, all you're going to have to do is unscrew that screw right there, take that pin off, and then push out this pin and this pin. And then I'll go ahead and take off the spacer and the spacer pin. So another thing, if you're installing brand new scales, such as Flytanium scales or anything like that, what you might want to do is look into using a bench press or just a hammer, and you want to hammer these two pins in. You don't need to, go overboard with it. I went overboard with mine, so I can tell you firsthand that's not what you want to do. But basically, you just want to hammer it in, just so if you see mine's just about flush with the scale, because they are pressure set, which if they're not, they could fall out, loosen up over time, stuff like that. It's not a huge problem. I just can't take mine out. Not a huge deal. So now I'm just going to show you how to put everything back on. So I always start with the spacer pin, and then I go ahead and put that on, and I'll kind of move it to the side. And then you just have to put this hook part around the body pin, and then the hole goes on the spacer pin. And that's basically it for the safe handle. And then you can go ahead and, if you want to oil anything up, I have some Teflon tape here. If you want to oil anything up, you can just put a little bit of oil right there. And then a little bit of oil on the other side. And then now I'm going to go ahead and talk about the bite handle. Alright, so now I'm going to talk about the bite handle. So this is where it gets a little bit different than the safe handle. As you can see, there's a lot of different parts here. I'll try and go over it as much as I can, but to take it apart, I'll just show you. Basically, just take them off piece by piece. First, you have the latch, and then also there's a spacer, I believe it's called, right in between there. You can't really see it, but it's just just another ring. And then you also have this very small pin. I'll put that right there. And then once again, you have the spacer and then the spacer pin. And then another thing that's different on this side is you have two pins, and that's what holds onto the clip. So to take that off, you just got to pop them through. But I leave mine on, so I'll put it right back. And then obviously to fully take everything off so you can install new scales, what you need to do is take off the Zen pin screw, take off the Zen pin, and then you'd be able to slide everything off. But once again, in the interest of time, I'm not going to do that. Okay, so I'll just start. I'll try and do everything and get everything in the light for everybody. But so the first thing I'm going to put in is that very small pin. It's very easy to do this if you push the pivot screws out of the way. And then you just want to put it with the little barrel that's around it in this little hole right here. And what that does is that stops the latch from over traveling, and it keeps it, you know, springy. I'm going to hold that and push these back in. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put the latch on with the hook facing towards the little pin you just put in. So on that side, you're going to put that in. And then just make sure the little ring inside of it stays there too. And then what you can do is you can put the liner pin back, or the spacer pin in, sorry. And then you can go ahead and put the spacer back on. And then that's all that's different on it. And now I can show you how to put the whole thing back together again. Alright, so I went ahead and I oiled everything up. I put the blade on, and what you want to do is you just want to make sure that everything is in the right position. So if you were to close it, that the bite handle would actually close on the blade and the safe handle on the regular handle. If you want, at this time, you can, if you want, you can shine up the liners a little bit by rubbing them down with a little Clorox strips or anything you want, or you can just toss them on. Doesn't really matter. It's not going to help anything if they're, you know, bright or anything. But the only difficult part of putting these on is just making sure that when you put this liner on, that the little hole in the liner actually goes into the hole with the little tiny pin I was talking about before. As long as that goes on, you're fine. And then you can go ahead and put the other liner on and put the scale on top of it. And now that everything's on, I'm probably just going to go ahead and fast forward through me putting the screws in. Alright folks, so that's how you take apart the Benchmade 51 and how to assemble it again, and also how to put on and install Flytanium scales or any other scales that you could buy. Thanks for watching, and I hope this video helped. If you're having any troubles with anything, feel free to ask any questions in the comments, and thanks.